Obesity rates in children have tripled since 2000. Globally, 1 in 10 teenagers are struggling with obesity. 1 in 5 are struggling with overweight issues. In India, the rates of adolescent obesity has doubled in the last decade. 1 in 5 teenagers, and in some cases, 1 in 3 teenagers, are struggling with overweight issues and obesity, especially in the urban and the affluent section of the society in India. In Kenya, 1 in 8 teenage girls are struggling with obesity. First time ever, the rates of adolescent obesity has surpassed the rates of malnutrition children globally. This is a serious health crisis. The best example I can give you is every individual listening to this has one family member, an aunt, an uncle, a child, a cousin, or your immediate family who's dealing with overweight and obesity issues. Namaste and welcome. This conversation is about embracing teen obesity with honesty, compassion, and hope. I want to begin this by telling you what this podcast is not. It's not a fix it approach to sorting this issue out. It's an approach where we are going to feel a lot of feelings. We are going to deep dive into the psyche of teenagers and the reality of the parents. Most importantly, I am not a health expert. I'm not a fitness expert. I'm not a clinician. I am a licensed psychologist working with teenagers and parents for almost a decade. My conversation is going to be about human awareness. My conversation brings in wisdom, experience, my credentials, and a lot more of evidences that I have seen in stories that I have heard. What do I know? That this conversation is always filled with fear, stigma, shame, judgment. And so, parents, we don't talk about this enough. Teenagers are struggling in silence and isolation over this. And so, today's conversation is all about coming home to ourselves, creating this safe space for you to, number one, create a lot of awareness about this issue, which we have hardly any clue about. And most importantly, leave with simple strategies of what really helps and strategies that don't at all help. So let's begin. What is obesity? What does the word obese actually mean? In simple words, it's excess fat accumulation in your body, which leads to health concerns. One of the things I witness this with parents, and this is very interesting, is that when a parent is working with a child, most often than not, we see our children as cute, adorable, amazing little species, right? Such innocent beings. And from that innocent beings, we reach a level of ignorance by the time they are in their teenagers. Because most often than not, the age between 11 to 19 is filled with rupture, and repair comes much later. So the conflicts with our teenagers is so real. And so sometimes we are ignorant to what is out right there for us to see that they are putting on weight or they are leaning into some kind of a self-soothing habit. So there is innocence to ignorance to crisis. By the time they are adults, you don't even realize that they have a serious health problem. Hence, this conversation is about peeling the layers like we would do to an onion. Because when you talk about obesity, there is not one single cause. It's not about restriction and weight and gym. No, it's not about that. It's a complex web of such underlying issues that we don't talk about. I need 2 promises from you, listeners. Number one, if this conversation is something that hits home, you're going to promise me that you'll sit through this entire conversation and follow share this conversation with someone you know or needs it. Number two, if this conversation hits home, ensure that you listen or watch this with your family, with your husband, with your wife, with your children. Teenagers, if you're watching this, promise me you're going to involve your parents into listening and watching to this. Without all of us involved, we cannot change anything here. So, what are the actual categories that bring in an overweight issue in a child? Okay, the reason I'm not saying problems or causes is because it's not one single thing. There are so many things that play a role. There is neuroscience, there's, of course, genetics, but then there is psychological and relational dynamics. And then there is lifestyle, the modern conveniences. What does neuroscience tell us about this? What we do know is the prefrontal cortex, this part of your child's brain, which is the CEO of your child's brain, completely develops by the age of 25. That means your child is going to be feeling a lot of feelings and also thinking from the emotional brain. And that's why sometimes you will see exaggerated emotions in your child. What does that do? That makes them be more impulsive. They are also going through identity crisis. And this aspect is very important, parents, for you to come back to at all times when struggling with any behavioral problems with your child, the neuroscience of it. Genetic plays a role. So if there is already a predisposition of somebody being obese or overweight in your family, yes, huge chances that your child is at a high risk of being overweight or obese. But the great news is genetics is the hardware. Epigenetics is the software. That's the environment, the early childhood experiences, the kind of pregnancy, the journey of pregnancy that the parents have. And all of these plays a huge role to a point that it can actually reverse the aspect of genes there. I really want parents you to narrow down on this. Genetics just plays a little bit of a role, but with the help of environmental changes and lifestyle changes, we can reverse this. So enough of telling that, oh, we have this in our family, now what to do? No shrugging shoulders anymore. So we've covered the neuroscience, we've covered the genetics. The biggest part of peeling these layers comes on this conversation around psychological and relational dynamics. So when you're talking about being overweight or you're talking about obesity, obviously the first step is food, the intake of food. And we all in our mind think, oh my God, they must be eating so much, they are lazy. Number one, they are not at all lazy. Children struggling with overweight or children struggling with obesity are not at all lazy. And as you understand this, we are now going to delve into this conversation, which is called emotional life. So we all have a big emotional life inside of us. This emotional life helps us have experiences and create the ripple of feelings and emotions of good, bad, angry, rage, frustration, isolated, powerless, sad, hungry. But how often are we actually stepping into the emotional life as a family or even children? So we are used to suppressing the conversation around emotional life where everything begins with. That's number one. Another aspect here is to understand that there is something known as trauma. Okay. And I know trauma kind of gives you a little bit of an inadequate feeling, but stay with me when I say this. There is big T, which is PTSD and war and near death experiences and sexual molestations. But then there is small t. Small t is trauma where your emotional needs are not met, where a child feels humiliated, alone, judged and shamed, where the child doesn't feel seen, heard, and understood enough. You know those moments when your teenager is like yelling and saying, "You don't understand." those moments that play an equal role in how they feel about themselves. So there is an emotional life, there is the small t where your emotional needs are not being met. But the most important part of being human is our attachment needs. We have an innate need to be attached to our caregivers, to our nurturers. We have an innate need for attention from them. So, what happens when this attachment is threatened? A child feels dysregulated, they feel lost, they feel confused, they don't know what's happening. These are actual biological phenomena that occurs inside of each of us when we were children and even in current times. Now, you may say that, okay, but this happened even to us. What's the big deal? The same neuroscience, the same genetics, look at us. And yes, you're right. However, a lot has changed when it comes to attachment, when it comes to attention, when it comes to being deeply connected with our caregivers. When we were young, we had our present parents most often than not. We had bigger communities. We had an aunt we used to love and an uncle who got us gifts, and we constantly were around people. We are social beings. And look at the plateau today for our children. They feel isolated, they feel alone. Parents are multitasking. In fact, sadly enough, parents are going through their own journey of divorces and finding themselves. There is addiction going on in almost every family, divorce going on in family, diseases going on in family, which makes us feel more isolated, and the same for our children. So, our children honestly are feeling lonely. Now, there is something about our bodies feeling the discomfort of big emotions like confusion, frustration, rage, anger, feeling lonely, nobody understands us. Something about that, and our body automatically making us do something which is self soothing. So, our body is so intelligent, it will find its way to give you the comfort that you require, one way or the other, consciously or unconsciously. And I really don't know why, but most of us in childhood do lean towards self soothing habits, which is food. And I do believe, I mean, this is just my opinion, not based on any fact or data, but I do believe that when we were young and we were hungry and we would cry, and our mom would hold us and put us near her heart, near her chest, and that nurturing and that first sip of food in our mouth is somewhere biologically makes us feel more loved and more connected when we touch or when we have any food near us, for us to lean into that as a self-soothing behavior. So now, as we are coming to this conversation around relational dynamics and psychological aspect, what we do know that there is trauma, there is attachment needs, there is emotional life, and when a child feels lonely, it would most definitely lean towards something that gives them an instant gratification. Most often than not, it is food. Because when they have that first bite of food and repetitive bites of food that they enjoy, there is a whole surge of happy hormones releasing, dopamine, serotonin. And so it forms a kind of a pattern. The best way to look at it is, there was recently a movie on Netflix, which is an Indian movie called Do Divane Seher Mein. And if you see the protagonist, the girl in that series, each time she's dealing with something difficult, she's made to seem like she's having Maggi noodles or some kind of food that gives her comfort. One of the best series on this, and you really need to watch this, it's called Meri Perfect Family, and it's on YouTube, where this little girl who's about 10, 11, and she witnesses this big conflicts between mother and father, then she witnesses a big conflict between grandparents and their parents, and suddenly the scene shifts to her being up late in the night, opening the fridge and opening a box of Nutella and just eating. That is one of the finest way to understand how emotional eating works. And so, emotional eating works when you feel lonely, when you feel you don't have anyone. And most importantly, when I speak about trauma here, I want you to understand trauma is not only what happens to you or what happens inside of you when something big happens outside of you, but trauma is when something really big is happening to you and you have no one to share with. You feel that you cannot talk about this to anyone. So take a moment, parents, and ask yourself, How often are our children witnessing fights, dysfunctionalities in our relationship? How often have we sometimes made our children keep the secret? How often have our children witnessed addiction or really a drinking behavior or a gambling behavior? For a child, these are huge things. In my day to day life, I have witnessed these in stories of children I work with. I have seen a pattern, and I'm not saying this is like the thorough data, but I have seen a pattern in girls who are perfectionists, who smile behind the silences, who get all the great grades, but they also have mothers who suffer in silence. I have noticed girls who want to be this perfectionist there and doing everything to please her parents. And I've also seen in the same family where the mother is suffering in silence about something. Now imagine a daughter witnessing the polarities in relationships. Not equity, not equality, but polarities when one person is more angrier than the other. One has a bigger problem. It could be gambling, it could be financial fraud, it could be whatever that the couple is dealing with. And then the other person is quietly suppressing it, deflecting it. The child is watching this and he or she has no one to share this with. Do you imagine how awfully isolating that could feel like? The body gets into repair mode by self-soothing behaviors. I know these are hard conversations, but I also know if we don't talk about it, if we don't become aware about it, we won't be able to move forward and do something about it. This conversation is not at all about shaming and judging us. We are all fully flawed parents. We are all just figuring ourselves out. But this conversation is about you understanding that there is a pothole for what the way you are driving. And if you notice that, then you can shift the gear, change the lane, and avoid the pothole. Hence, this conversation will keep coming back to the psychological and the relational dynamic. One of the guaranteed way to know that a child is struggling with obesity or overweight is to actually peekaboo into their relational dynamics. If they have toxic parents, and I'm not saying parents are inherently toxic, it's the trait, it's the judging, the abuse, the emotional abuse, the physical abuse, the constant shaming and judging, the constant reminding them they are lazy. It's that which again comes down to self soothing behaviors. So these play a huge role in how your child is coping. And these are all coping mechanisms that the body automatically makes your child do it. Remember, these are still children, their brain is not developed. To expect them to understand all this and do a course correction and have a healthy and a fit life, not happening. Not happening. And then the whole conversation around modern conveniences. Now, let me tell you certain harsh facts. Every child is spending about 7 hours on their screen. It could be a laptop, it could be phone, it could be a gaming device, 7 hours each day. We never thought that just by twiddling our thumbs we would have food at our table. We never thought that the world would change so much that movement would be non-existent. The modern conveniences has played a huge role. Look at the kind of food and nutrition our children are getting. Processed food, carbs, sugary drinks, Monster, Energy Bull. Parents do that. Children will do that. Remember, our children is monkey see, monkey do. They are not going to do what you ask them to do. They are going to do what they see you doing. We have to open our eyes to what is this doing to our family dynamics, to our health dynamics. These are such serious conversations. To add to it, the pressures from school. Look at the focus, in a manner that education plays the most important role, understandably so. Our parents also pushed us for education, but currently the education institutes and the family environment and the family dynamics is pushing the child to perform under pressure without understanding what the child actually requires. The child needs sunlight, the child needs movement, the child needs exercises, the child needs sports. But as they get into the serious grades of 7, 8, 9, 10, which is actually the key role of their adolescent time, which is the time where the stress then releases the cortisol, which then turns into, some more visceral fat around their stomach. And in all of this, we are taking away the most important part, that is health, movement, exercise, and right eating. Over and above that, sleep patterns have changed. Mothers, do you remember those times when we were growing up? We knew 9 o'clock kitchen lights off. I mean, I know for almost every household that was the way of life. We knew that maybe after dinner we will all walk, go for a tiny walk, or we'll sit and talk and we'll go to bed. Look at the plateau today. Your children are sleeping at what time we don't even know. And they are constantly on screen. And they have midnight binging, and that's okay. It's not okay. One of the most important things we mothers can do is kitchen is closed. And no judgment here, moms. Like, you are working mothers, we are working fathers, we have our own relational conflicts, we have our own problems going on, we are multitasking, we are tired, we are exhausted. And most importantly, some of you are single parents. So I understand. But I also understand that if we don't do this right, we are losing an entire flock of next generation to health crisis. I know some of you may feel that maybe this is just not such a big problem. Some of you may feel, oh, they are children and they'll grow out of it. And then I've seen this particular person becoming super fit when they were an adult, but they were fat when they were young. I agree. And yet, in a big way, I disagree, because times have changed. What I do know is that if we do not manage the overweight and obesity issue in childhood right now, the likelihood of that child turning into an obese adult is 5 times more. And what does that bring in? What happens if a person is fat? Or what happens if a person is obese? It's not so serious. Well, it is. It leads to severe health problems like high blood pressure, cardiovascular problems, heart problems, non-alcoholic fatty liver diseases, fertility problems, reproduction problems in females, and the top ones which I just mentioned actually leads them to death at a very early age. And so when I say this is a health crisis, I mean it. It's not something that now we can look the other way. So we are talking about obesity, we are talking about statistics, we are talking about the role of all these different angles play, genetics and neuroscience and relational dynamics and emotional eating. And then, of course, modern conveniences. So how do we come out of this ditch? It's a lot, I know, it's a lot. But the great news is that whatever that I'm going to share with you is not something which is one point approach. You're going to listen to these strategies and curate your own path to a healthy and a fit family. What I want us to do, parents, is number 1, sensitivity. I want you parents, for all of us to be super sensitive about this conversation. Strategies, I'm telling you now, will never work where you're shaming them, judging them, calling them lazy. No, that's never going to work. And I'll tell you why. Yes, your eyes see them lying on a couch, being on their phone, eating something, and so your brain tells you they are being lazy. But let me tell you again, when I talk about that emotional life, every big feelings which were negative that you had, think of it as an energy. Imagine your child has gone through so much when it's witnessed such dysfunctionalities and painful isolation during their growing up years, or they are still going through it. All of that is a big boulder of energy inside of them, which is like 50 kilos. And now I'm asking you, if I put 50 kilos on you and I ask you to go walk to the school, will you be able to do that? It's the same concept for children. They can't do that until someone helps them through this and helps them release and express these conversations and then stories and literally reduce that load for them to feel lighter, to them then feel motivated and do something about it. Am I saying that means therapy is the only way? No. It is one of the ways. Family therapy helps, individual therapy helps, but what definitely does not help is you sending your child at 8 years of age for therapy saying, sort this problem out. It's not sorting that out. You need to be on ground with them on this. You need to get into a program where the therapist is working with the family. Your child is incapable of understanding these big concepts. What is not helping is you expecting your child to go join gym and figure this out. That strategy will never work. If you're expecting your child to understand that you are busy and they have to do this by themselves, that strategy will never work. And then if you're expecting your child to restrict food, oh, don't take their soothing self-coping away. Restriction never works. What works is compassion, honesty, and a disciplined lifestyle. So let's look at it. Number one, sensitivity. That means you're going to be like a hawk around your children when a relative is talking to them. If somebody brings up a topic of body or shape or size or weight, honestly, shut them off. That's your job. It's your job that your child sees you, that you're protecting them from those piercing arrows which really hurt them. It impacts their self-esteem for life. It's a scar that they stay with. So you're not going to have judgment, you're not going to have shame, you're not going to be, allowing other people to shame and judge them. Given. The next thing is you're going to build in awareness. That means watch this again with them. Talk about it as a family. Ask them, does this resonate with them? Actually, be honest and say what parts resonate. Do you feel lonely? Do you feel we don't understand you? So bring in awareness on this. Understand what else do you need to know. Because it's not just the family or the modern conveniences. There's also the school aspect. Maybe your child is being bullied and isolated and discriminated and the school pressures, and maybe the teachers are humiliating the child to go into the self-soothing behavior of eating and overeating. And maybe you are just an overworked parent who comes home at late hours and your child is asleep and you're wondering why there is such overweight issues with my child. So maybe this aspect is not for you, but the school aspect is for your child. So sensitivity, awareness, then comes intentionality. Now, intentionality is the big one, family. You all have to be in this together. Remember, the approach will never work if you're expecting your child to do anything. It has to be mother, father, siblings, and the child, everybody part of a culture with intention to shift something about your own health and lifestyle. That means every area is now going to be looked upon. The timing that you sleep, the kitchen will be closed, what kind of nutrition and food we all are eating, how much protein, carbs, fiber, sugar and savory things, or most importantly, sugar-based products, processed food products, everything will only come on weekends, once a week. So instead of telling your child, oh, I can see you having another slice of pizza, that hurts. How about you stop the source of not ordering pizza on a Wednesday night? Instead of picking on the plate, pick on the source. Disconnect the source. So have really strict way of living, disciplined way of living. Imagine parents, one of the things you need to really come to understanding is this is not about you making your child happy ever. Parenting is never about you making your child happy. Parenting is about you keeping your child safe and preparing them for the challenges that they will face as they grow up. So most of the times your child is going to be upset with you, which is okay. Remember, you are the pilot and they are the passenger. So you are in command of this, you are in control of this. And in this journey, they are going to push back. But know that you've got to be very firm as a family and you've got to be that example for them. So sleep, kitchen closed, eating right, food and nutrition, junking only at the once in a week, and then movement. Movement is medicine. For children, the recommended time is 60 minutes intensive 7 days a week. 60 minutes intensive exercise 7 days a week. Yeah, you heard that right. Which we used to get when we were children. Your child needs to get into something that is physically exerting, because every time they are exercising or playing a sport, those energy that I told you about, suppressed energy, is released. And you need to know that you cannot push your child at 8 years or 10 years to gym. But sit with them. Understand with them. What is it that they'll enjoy? Martial arts maybe? Football? Cricket? Badminton? Sports? any kind of sports. After dinner as a family, you all need to go for a walk. 10 minutes of walk is a must post meals. 10,000 steps is recommended for all of us, including our children. Remember that part, parents, when I told you that your child has an emotional life just like all of us, and they feel lonely and worried and confused and sometimes not know who to talk to? You really need to deep dive into connection, 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 connection with your child. All your child needs is a lot of time where you're fully present with them, dads and moms. Even if it is just 20 minutes every day where you're fully present with your child, no devices, no distractions. What that does is it gives them a space to express and talk and not feel judged. So when you're building a deeper and meaningful connection with your child doesn't feel lonely. Allow them to express, let them talk about it. All conversations are welcome, no judgment, no telling them this is rude, how can you say that? Your child is witnessing your fights. What are we hiding behind? We might as well smile and say, okay, bring it on. Yes, it is hard. Yes, yeah, we have this problem. Yes, we are constantly fighting. Just accept it. Something to combat loneliness is someone telling you it's okay to feel that. Someone validating what you're feeling. As long as you keep validating what they are feeling and just accept it without pushing it back, I promise you a lot of self-soothing behaviors will disappear. One of the leading causes of children getting into food and food-based emotional eating or compulsive eating is because they feel lonely. It's one of the most important part, parents. They will not feel lonely around you. Remember the attachment part I said, the attention part that I said. So what you need to do is strategize a way where you're spending 20 minutes with your child every day. And so dad alone with 20 minutes, mom alone 20 minutes, maybe as a family together, going for that family walk. But most importantly, dads and moms, promise me, when you are sitting and having dinner, have it as a family together, and all of you will keep your devices away. I know this is a big issue because our brain convinces us that there is an important email, but it can't be 7 days a week. It can't be 14 times a week that you're sitting to eat together, or 7 times sitting to eat together, and all 7 times you need your phone. And if you do need your phone, then be honest with your children and say, hey, I have to respond to this email, or hey, I need to take this call. Do you mind? I promise you one thing, the day you have such rigid, honest conversation with your children will also give you the same respect when they are on their devices at some point. All these issues that we see where parents are complaining that they're always on their phone is because children are witnessing you always being on your devices. So no shame or judgment, parents, but promise me that if you're serious about these strategies to manage the health crisis in our children, one of the things you'll do is have dinner together and keep your devices away. Conversations need to be open, healthy, storytelling, your childhood bloopers, your day-to-day bloopers. Children need to see imperfect parents for them to be okay feeling imperfect. So very important, connection. Okay, so as you build in connection, as you build in nutrition, as you build in healthy eating habits, as you build in the importance of exercising, even you as a parent are getting into exercise, by the way, and as you are building this robust connection as a family, you need to remember that they need to be able to embrace failures. You need to be able to embrace failures. You've done this for 8 days and they are doing well. Ninth day, maybe they just ended up having that donut. So what? No shaming. In fact, this is one exercise I do with my clients who are adults and dealing with obesity, which I'm asking you mothers now, mothers and fathers, to do it with your children. If your child falters and makes a mistake and gets into compulsive eating or emotional eating, look into their eyes, be that mirror and say, hey, it's okay. You've done it so well for 10 days. You've done it so well for 21 days. You've done it so well for 3 days. And we are proud of you. And we love you. And you're enough and beautiful and worthy the way you are. But how about we start from tomorrow? Let's begin day one. What that does is releases the child and you of that shame and judgment of being perfect. And they are going to fall and fail at least million times before they get it right. Remember, the journey to health is a long-term, beautiful process. It's not a fix-it solution. By imbibing these conversations and these healthy patterns, you are literally helping them come home to the healthy body, have a different level of respect and love for themselves, where shaming has no room, judgment has no room. Because one of the biggest damages that weight problem does for a child or an adult is rip them of their self-esteem. And I have seen this. You could be a CEO or you could be an overachieving 10 A-star student. Deep down, you are struggling with a fragile self-esteem if you're having issues with your weight. And this is one of the most important conversations for you to know. No shaming, no judging, lots and lots of sensitivity, lots of compassion, and being that guard to your children. How dare someone be mean to my child? How dare someone bring up the conversation of why are you so fat? That's not happening. Remember, your children are not lazy. Remember, they are not just using an excuse. They are just children. They are just being themselves. And as long as you are in it with them, supporting them, there is no battle that they cannot win. As I am almost at the end of this conversation, I want to leave you with this. I'm sure most of my listeners here have heard about Mahabharata. I want you to think about our children as Abhimanyu. They are seriously stuck in that spiral chakra view. And this chakra view is the modern conveniences. The chakra view is the pressure of school. The chakra view is the parents dealing with their own health problems, diseases, relational dynamics, poverty, whatever else that is going on. But they have no say in this. They are not equipped for this. Now, in real Mahabharata, the Pandavas didn't know the way back in to save that Abhimanyu. But here, this conversation and all these awareness-based tools that we have, you have the way back in to save your child through this chakra view and bring them out far more grittier than ever, far more aware than ever. Because the only journey that really matters is your journey back home, to yourself, to your body. This is the only place you wake up to, only place you go back to bed. And so, my last points, our parents struggled very hard for us to be educated so that we thrive. In those days, education was everything to come to a certain level where we could, be better than they were. Those are not the same days today. Today, our focus is bringing them back to health. Education, they are killing it. They're really doing well. They'll do better than us. They'll earn better than us. The only thing we really need to be completely focused and tuned in on is their health and helping them get back to their health. Thank you very much. If this resonated, please share this with many people. Namaste.